Hi there guys and girls, got a little bit of an update. I'm working on fixing my arcade machine screen. So for those of you who don't know, my screen's been out of action for almost 10 years, maybe longer, maybe not that long. I know it hasn't been working for a long time. And during this time period, I've spoken to a lot of people. I do know people who have arcades, and they've said, oh, it's probably the chassis. And I kind of didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because I don't know a lot about the screens in arcades. I know more about the front side of things. When I fix things, they were always just little things, you know. I was specifically told, the arcade I worked at, never mess around with the screens, you know, because they can kill you. Especially in Australia, we use 220 volts here. In America, you use 110, even though we go into a transformer though, so it's still kind of the same inside. I get all that now, but anyway, so a lot of people told me it's a chassis. It's probably a capacitor, you know, and working in computers, I can tell you one of the main causes of computers not booting up, old computers, is a dodgy capacitor. So I know a bit more now, I'm a bit more confident, and so I'm looking at taking out the chassis and replacing or checking the capacitors. Now I looked at, and this is the other thing that confused me, right? I looked at all the capacitors inside on that chassis board, and they all look fine. They're all flat top. They don't look, there's no sign of popping, or what happens usually when you got a bad cap is the top starts to bulb, and then like eventually it will open up. And there were none with that. But here's the thing, there was one capacitor I didn't see, one, and it's right next to the fly lead, I think it's called, that powers the screen, which is, you know, it makes sense. My screen doesn't come on, doesn't warm up at all, there's nothing, and the capacitor is right next to that fly lead, and it's starting to bulb, and I just noticed it like yesterday, like when I looked in there, because I got my head right inside the arcade, and I'm like, motherfucker, I didn't see you before, because it's like hiding in this like little shell thing, and so I'm hoping it's just that one capacitor, and if it is, I just desolder it, go down to J-Car, replace it, and put it back in. I should have my screen working again. But what I want to do is, I want to check all the caps. So I've got to find a way to check them, because there are a lot of capacitors on the board, and it is an old machine. It's an old chassis. I think it was last checked in 92 or something. So anyway, I looked up, there's a few videos on YouTube about how to safely remove a chassis, and you've got to be really careful, because the screen holds something like 13,000 to 18,000 volts. It can kill you. This is no joke. So, and that's why I haven't fucked around with it. So I watched a few videos. One was John's Arcade Tech Reviews or something. He had a great video about discharging, and I watched another one with some other guy, I forgot his name. And so what I've done is I'll show you guys. Sorry, I've made an earth, because these guys, they earth it to their arcade machine. My arcade machine doesn't have a metal frame around the screen to earth to, and I don't want to earth it to, you know, anything else really, to be honest. So what I've done is I've put a rod in the ground here. Let me just show you. I put this rod in the ground. It's pretty far down. We whacked it right in, me and Dad. I wrapped a whole lot of exposed copper wire around it and taped it in place, so that's not going anywhere. Now that brown wire goes along these bushes, and it joins to another wire. There's a joiner, just because I needed length. I'll show you guys, there you go. And that joiner and this cable are the cables that run through your wall in your house. They're high gauge, so they can take a lot of power, and same with the joiners, they're designed to work with high gauge stuff. And then here, see, here's another one, and then that joins to this green one, and that goes through under the window. Right, comes through there, and it goes behind Mr. Arcade Machine. Let me just turn on these lights. So it goes behind here to this screwdriver. Now, as you can see, there's an alligator clip here on the screwdriver, and I've taped that in place as well, and that connects to to the wire, and that's soldered on, so that's not going anywhere either. Now, this is what you use to remove the chassis, the big part of the chassis. Let me turn this light on that I put into place earlier. As you can see, I've already taken that neck board off. That's it, this fella down here. That plugs into that. That's where the picture from the game goes into the screen. That's the chassis, this box. And as you can see, I've pulled every wire off. I've pulled everything off. See this one? Everything's off, but there's one wire you can't get off, and that's this one. This red one that goes up to that cap. That's the thing. That's the thing that scares the fucking shit out of me. So with that screwdriver, you pop it under there and you give it a twist, and that goes and discharges the power. And as you can see, my arcade machine comes with warning stickers to add to that fear. High voltages are present behind this panel. There are no user serviceable parts inside. Refer to all servicing to qualified personnel, which is not me, to reduce risk of electric shock. Disconnect power supply cord before servicing, which is a very important thing. And as you can see, I've done that, and I've actually thrown the cord down there on the ground so no one can go, oh, that came unplugged, I'll plug that back in. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Now, if I can get that cap off safely, I'm sure I'll be okay. I'm going to unscrew. See, there's a screw there. There's one, two, three, four. I'm going to unscrew it and take the chassis out and try and get into that bung cap. Now, let me see if I can show you. It's hard to see. See, this is how I'll show you, because you see, when I film in here, you can see these are capacitors with the flat tops, silver things. Now, the one you can't see in here, see how it's got that little wall? It's in there. I poked my head right in. Let's see if I can do it for you guys. It's hard to do. It's in there. It's in there. And I can't show you because it won't. Yeah. And that's why I couldn't see it. That is why. It was hiding in there. And that's the only one that has like sort of a bulb on it. So I'm going to hopefully that's the problem with the chassis, and replace it. And if all is good, I will have my arcade machine back. And I won't need to rely on an external monitor, you know, but I'll still be able to record, which is cool. You know, it's not in vain. And yeah, that was the final look, by the way. That I added all these plugs the other day. This audio output with volume control, video output, and this is a serial output for another little circuit board I made. So there's the board's under this control panel that controls these, and that board had 8 switches on it to control the picture, the output picture, you know, the vertical, horizontal and that. So the problem is, if I screw it in here and put it under like I have, you can't get to the board anymore. That was the idea. I just wanted plugs. I wanted it neat. But the problem is you can't get to the 8 switches that adjust the picture. So I soldered a wire to each of those switches, each of the 8 switches. There we go. And I ran to this DB9 connector, which has 9 connections. So 8 wires, 8 signal wires for each switch, and 1 wire for ground that goes to each switch. So all the switches can share a ground line, so that's exactly 9 wires. So I ran the 9 wires to this, and then I've got a little circuit board. I just plug it in there. If I want to adjust the picture, it's got 8 switches on it, and I can do it. Luckily for me, the board in there remembers the settings. It remembers how you've set it. So you don't need to do this adjustment much, but if I do need to do it, I can. And I don't need to bother about taking the control board out. So that's what I'm doing right now. And the reason I'm doing a video about this is, if I happen to do something wrong and kill myself, I went out fixing my Mortal Kombat arcade machine. Oh yeah. But I'm sure I'll be fine. So yeah, little update. That's what I'm working on. Oh, I keep putting that box. And hopefully that is what is wrong with the arcade machine. So I'll see you guys soon with an update. Hi there guys and girls, so I'm alive. I did it and I'm alive. So I'll show you guys what I think is the problem. So I've never taken this part out of my arcade machine before. Like I said, you know, it was pretty, I don't know, I was intimidated by it. So you can see all the capacitors here. This controls the monitor. The fuses I already checked, they're fine. This is the power in for the monitor, that's the ground line. It's next to the back there. This is what we call a Glendale screen. I noticed the when I was taking it off, there's a serial number here, 776, and it matches the actual monitor too. So the monitor and the chassis were set at one stage. I guess that's normal for back then, but as you can see, all these caps look pretty good. They do. Like if I zoom in, you will see that there's no bulbing on any of them, and that's why I was confused for a long time. Like, people would say, oh, it's probably capacitors, you know, and they all look fine. But like I said, I missed this one. And see how easy it is to miss. Look at it. There it is. If I zoom in on it, so that's it there. You can see there is kind of a bulb on top. Right? There's a bulb on top. That capacitor is definitely failing. And that is the one that I couldn't see without poking my whole head through there. And as you can see, that is right next to this part, which I believe is called the fly lead, and that goes to that scary cap that I just took off, the anode cap. That's the neck board, controls the screen. So now I have to desolder that capacitor and replace it, and hopefully then when I put it all back together, my screen will be fixed. But while I got it apart, I'd probably like to, I'm gonna have to look up a way to check them, to check the capacitors, just to even just touch a multimeter underneath them or something. There must be a way to check them, so I'm gonna look into that, and yeah, we'll go from there. So guys, I managed to take him out. That's him. That possibly is the fault with my arcade. I don't know if that's the only fault, but if I hold it level, it's hard to show you, but there's a slight, and it's very slight, but it is there, a slight bulb on top, and that means that generally there's something wrong. There you go. So I've desoldered him and taken him out. He's 200 volts, 100 microfarad, and that was right next to the part that controls the screen. Also, when I took the anode cap off, it didn't spark, it didn't go pop. So for me, it felt like the screen had no power in it. So I think this guy might be totally fucking dead. I don't know. I've tried to, I only have cheap multimeters, and I looked up how to check these with the cheap multimeter, but it's not working the way the internet says. It says, oh, it'll give you a reading. It's not giving me a reading. So all I know is there are volts in here. There's like 2 volts in here. This is a 200 volt thing, so I think this thing's pretty much friggin' dead. So yeah, I'll replace him, and hopefully I'll have my arcade machine back. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you for another video soon. If you liked this video, check out this one. You might enjoy yourself. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks, guys.